This video should have been out about a month ago, but several things took precedent, like making fun of No Man's Sky. But I'm getting to it now. Banning video games is a stupid idea. As you may know, last month some unfortunate things happened in Germany and the age-old dilemma came up again. If video games cause people to shoot other people, why not ban video games? It seems so simple, right? Like, if a video game causes someone to feel the need to kill another human being in real life, then why should we not just outright ban it? Because it doesn't. Much like the people who say that eating dark chocolate is gonna make you lose weight because they read it in a study, there will be people who say that video games cause violence because they read it in a study. The problem with those studies, just like the study about playing games makes you dumber because it reduces your brain matter, which had a sampling of 30 people, those tend to be not very good studies. For reference, any study made with less than 100 people is by definition absolute crap. If video games caused violence, then trust me, I would probably be a very violent person and not a pacifist. I'll give you this. Games can be quite graphic, games can depict scenes that are downright brutal, horrible, horrific. You know what else does that? Your brain. Yeah, you ever read a horror book? You ever read something that just said, and his guts spilled out, and all sort of things started to crawl out, and then someone shot the other guy in the face, and his head exploded, and there were brains everywhere. Yeah, your brain starts to just form those images, and should that be banned? Yeah, I know that Green Day has said that they're worried about video games becoming more violent, but who cares? If there's one thing you should never be worried about is that video games will become more violent. We've already kind of peaked a couple of years ago with that. There's the chainsaws in Gears of War, there's the, well, anything in Mortal Kombat. I mean, that series started about, what, 25 years ago with Sub-Zero ripping out someone's head with the spine. Like, you could see the blood and spine and wiggling about. You can't really go much further up than that. Like, that's violence in a way that you'd only see in movies. Like, lots of movies. An extreme number of movies. Yo, sure, you may argue that a movie is different from a game because, well, it is. A game puts you in that role, it puts you in that mindset, it turns you into a killer. It trains you, which is something that people who've never played games keep saying. At first I thought that this was an American thing, but now it seems that the Germans are doing it too and a lot of other people. There's a distinction between fantasy and reality. This is something that human beings develop at a very early age, the ability to discern between what's real and what's imaginary. That's a baseline for being a fully developed human being mentally. And yet, the majority of the people that say that video games encourage you to be a killer don't seem to understand that. They operate at a level where most people actually aren't able to discern reality from fiction. Which, to be fair, yeah, there are some isolated cases where people can't tell reality from fiction. I mean, The Matrix inspired someone to kill other people because he believed he was in the Matrix. Okay, not the fun fact about that's the wrong way to express myself. There may be a chance we are in a Matrix-like simulation because there's things in the universe that behave a bit kind of like the code we're writing. It could be that the code we write to do all sorts of stuff is that way because that's the optimal way for it to be, which just happens to be a reflection of reality, or the fact that they found a sort of mechanism that addresses matter and energy loss at a subatomic level that's similar to the way that packet loss is addressed by a web browser, yeah, that sort of got people thinking that maybe we are in a simulation. But that's not the point of the show. The point of the show is that banning video games is absolutely stupid. What do you gain from banning a video game? Let's say you manage to ban violent video games. What do you actually achieve? Are people going to be less inclined to be violent? No, they're not. I know plenty of people, some of them have actually robbed my grandfather recently, who don't play video games but are very violent. They're also illiterate. Banning video games will not reduce violence. The history of the human race is filled with violence, mostly caused by lack of education, lack of resources, lack of fostering an actual connection with other human beings. And video games, contrary to what some of the people who want to ban video games say, do tend to foster relations. Yeah, you're gonna swear because you got hit in the head in Counter-Strike about 1 billion times by some cheater, but if you actually try and play it, you will form a momentary bond with your teammates. You'll communicate. You may end up being friends later on. Can an MMO be considered violent? I mean, because most MMOs are based entirely on killing. Are those violent? Do you know how many people have met? How many communities have been created because of those? And even Counter-Strike. I mean, Counter-Strike has been the element which galvanized something called esports together. It created communities, it created places where people can come together and share their experiences. And none of them seem to have been involved in mass shootings. And yet, politicians, the media, they would still ban them because video games are, well, they're the enemy. There's something that kids like, that kids enjoy, that adults, well, not all adults, the old adults don't understand, that they fear, and they use that fear to gain power, to stay there until they will be killed by entropy, old age, random happenings, and then we'll look back to this point in history and say, oh man, remember when they tried, those deluded people, when they tried to ban Dungeons and Dragons because it was Satanism, and rock and roll because it was violent, and anything that young people liked because it was evil, all because there were a bunch of uneducated, knee-jerk reacting idiots. That time will come, and it's not really that far off. I mean, in another 20 years, unless they do ban video games by then, there probably won't be in the higher echelons of governments and media people that haven't grown up with video games. People who are in no way violent. If Counter-Strike did cause violence, trust me, you would see waves of crime and murder at a level that is beyond comprehension because people just don't seem to understand, like the media. The politicians don't understand exactly how popular Counter-Strike is. Yeah, a bunch of people bought it, millions, but pirated versions of it since 07, since you needed a pirated Half-Life to play it, have been around for 16 years, and yet it's done no actual damage to the human race. But let's say that, yeah, you can get Counter-Strike banned. You can get every violent game banned because they are violent, because they depict murder. What you've effectively done then is that you've banned Spec Ops The Line. You know what Spec Ops The Line is, right? Spec Ops The Line is a game that I encourage you to play it. As a shooter, it's not very good, it's repetitive, it's lackluster, and it's made to be that way. It's intentionally made to not be that great of a shooter, mechanically speaking, because it's one of the most fucked up games ever made. It's a game where you go into it thinking to yourself, well, I'm gonna be the hero, I'm gonna save everyone, and then you realize, no, God no, I'm not a hero, I'm not even sure if I'm a villain, I'm not sure what I am. Spec Ops The Line is a masterwork of subverting expectations. It's a commentary not on just video games where you're the hero, but on any sort of, not just media, but general life, where you're expected to be the hero by going out and doing something violent in the name of being heroic. and then ending up to be in no way a hero. Because what you do to others, what you do to yourself is just a descent into madness. That game is a cultural talking point at this moment. That game is a discussion about us as people. And they would ban that because it's a violent video game. They would ban something that is without the shadow of a doubt art because it is violent. Does this sound like the rational thought of a human being that doesn't have ulterior motives? Would such a person ban a movie as well for being too violent? Would they ban, I don't know, every movie Quentin Tarantino made? Because those are just violence for the sake of violence. They're gory as hell. Would they ban RoboCop? Because RoboCop is incredibly violent. Would they ban Mad Max? Would they ban Hannibal because it shows you how to get away with being a cannibal? They won't, because those are established mediums and games are not yet that. And yet, there is a quote from a video game that does come to mind. Beware he who would deny you access to information, for in his mind he dreams himself your master. And make no mistake, that's what people going around saying, let's ban something that we don't like, are thinking. They're not trying to ban extremism. They're not trying to ban things that are actively trying to kill you. They're not actually trying to address the reasons for why someone would commit a mass murder, because that would require ruffling feathers. That would require going against the very system they need in order to be where they are, to ascend higher in the chain of power. Whereas going after games doesn't pose that problem. It doesn't pose a solution either, but it seems like a solution. It's all theater. One big lie after another. That quote I told you earlier was from a game called Sid Meier's Alpha Centauri. I did a show about it not in English, though it does have English subtitles. That game can teach you a lot of things, and yet it is in itself a bit violent because you have the ability to nuke people, to nuke a planet, to commit atrocities. Can that game be considered violent as well? Can that game be banned? When you're dealing with people like this, people that would declare that GTA 5 shouldn't be sold in certain stores, that declare that video games are an accurate way to train for shooting people, yeah, you may end up with them banning Alpha Centauri because it does something unthinkable. It encourages critical thinking, it educates, it makes the player the enemy of the establishment. Because as the game itself says, we must dissent. And banning it would be a really, really stupid idea. Games are art. Even the shittiest game possible is art because it's an expression. If you don't think that games are art, then tell me, would you consider a movie art? Like any movie to be art? Even the Transformers? Even, I don't know, a Serbian film? All of those are art. And games are art. Not just the artsy ones that are about a line moving in one direction, but then suddenly the line becomes a circle and it moves diagonally. Not just those things. All games are art. They are one of the ultimate expressions of art because they contain everything. They contain so many methods of expression that it is unparalleled, and yet some people would ban them because they don't understand them, and they never will because they don't want to, and people will let them because they themselves don't understand. So don't let them. If you live in a democracy, you have a voice. You can tell them not to ban video games. And if they do, you're not in a democracy. You don't have rights anymore. And, as the saying goes, you must dissent. Well, that would be it for this rant about banning video games being absolutely stupid. Here's hoping that, well, it doesn't come to that again, because it sure as hell has repeatedly in the past. If you enjoyed this show, hit the like button, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Or, if you thought it was horrible, then share it with your enemies and make them suffer. We shall be your weapon of vengeance. But if you liked what you saw, you could, I don't know, maybe donate, because basically YouTube is horrible at revenue, by using the link in the description, or just buy my book. It's a fantasy book about, well, a lot of stuff. I guarantee it won't suck, and if it does suck, you can find me here and complain about it.